Well, it turns out that while the Office of Management and Budget has steadfastly refused thus far to comply with the subpoena from the impeachment investigators that they need to hand over all relevant documents as part of these impeachment proceedings, the other piece of big news tonight that we just got is that somebody in Congress is starting to get these documents, or at least they're starting to get some of them. Because today, the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee announced out of the blue, surprise, that even though the impeachment committees are being stonewalled by the White House, those two committees, Budget and Appropriations, they have been getting stuff. They have received documents related to the White House holdup of military aid to Ukraine. The committees had apparently asked OMB for these documents in September, all related to the withholding of the military aid for Ukraine. The agency ignored the committee's October deadline to produce those documents. But in this surprise twist today, the House Budget Committee announced that actually it has started receiving some of those documents. Now, the committee is not releasing those raw documents to show the public at this time, but they did share a summary of the findings from these documents with reporters. That summary says, in part, quote, after careful review of the materials provided to the committees, the chairs have become more concerned that the apportionment process has been abused to undermine Congress's constitutional power of the purse. Specifically, number one, the timeline of actions taken by OMB, as seen in the provided apportionments, which are legally binding documents, suggests a pattern of abuse of the apportionment process and OMB's authority and current law. Number two, OMB took the seemingly unprecedented step of stripping career officials of their normal role in the apportionment process and instead vesting a political appointee with that authority. This is a troubling deviation from long-standing procedures. The committee also confirmed that it has in its possession documents related to Mark Sandy's assertion that President Trump questioned Ukraine's military aid as early as mid-June, as soon as there were press reports derived from a Pentagon press release that said that the military aid was on its way. You'll remember Mark Sandy testified he first heard about the president's interest in the military aid on June 19th, the day after the Defense Department announced that the aid was going to Ukraine. Sandy says he heard about it in the form of an email from his boss, the aforementioned Mike Duffy, expressing a, quote, interest in getting more information from the Department of Defense about this military aid that the president was now questioning. Well, as part of the timeline contained in its summary, the Budget Committee today says that specifically on June 19th, OMB asserts in our documents that they first inquired with the Defense Department about Ukraine security assistance, which means part of what's being described here by Mark Sandy in this deposition, the president expressing concern, the president ordering the withholding of the aid, the advice from career officials that that might be illegal, those career officials then being replaced by the guy who they'd told this was all going to be illegal. It appears that not only is that documented per Mr. Sandy's deposition, but at least some of those documents have made it to Congress. Not to the impeachment committees, but to these other committees. Okay. The committee notes ominously at the end of its summary, quote, OMB's documentation to date confirms that the apportionment process has been misused to withhold congressionally enacted appropriations. But, I mean, we can read between the lines. We don't know exactly what they've got. A committee source tells us tonight that the documents the committee has received arrived in sort of dribs and drabs over the past 2 months, which suggests that maybe the White House doesn't have as tight a control over their own behavior in this investigation as you might expect them to. The committee is not releasing these documents today, but this committee source tells us they might in future as part of the, quote, legislative process. As for why they got these documents, as for why OMB released documents to the Budget Committee when it is steadfastly refusing to give them to the impeachment committees, we really have no idea. How many documents they let out, what those documents exactly show, their overall relevance to the impeachment proceedings, that's a question for the Budget Committee to answer at this point. At least I think it is. But it looks like some of what they're really looking for, some of the incredibly damning stuff at the heart of this impeachment proceedings, and specifically the behavior of the president, appears to be squeaking out, appears to be getting out of what is supposed to be a locked up White House on this issue. I have just the person to check this out with next.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.